Now, the cult of the Supreme Being supported the idea of a Supreme Being and immortality of the soul. However, it was not consistent with Christian doctrine, as the only way virtue could be attained was through fidelity and devotion to liberty and democracy. Oh my gosh, democracy. Well, we have the North Korean Democratic Republic of North Korea. We have the German Democratic Republic. We've got the Democratic... Democracy seems to be a very popular word amongst socialists and atheists. Maybe they don't use democracy in the way that... Well, it's a socialist term. Socialist. Now, I want to read something from my notes on this idea of Robespierre. Now, they created a new religion. Right, so he now replaces one cult with another. The cult of reason he replaces, because you see the culture was really steeped in the idea of having religion, right? So he goes and he talks to people and he says, he basically says to them that, let me see what he says. I'm looking at this. Okay, so he says that men are attached to the ideas that they've grown up with, basically, okay? And can such a, says, at any rate, I cannot conceive how nature can have suggested to men fictions more beneficial than all realities, right? Actually, no, what did he say? Hold on, I've got to find the quote here that he says. He says that if the existence of God and the immortality of the soul were nothing but dreams, they would still be the most beautiful conceptions of the human spirit. And he says that, are you going to tear away people's faith in God in these beautiful churches? And you're going to tell the grieving person that, oh yeah, these guys just turned into worm food and their life was meaningless. He says, how does that give them solace? How does that give them comfort? We need to give them a religion that makes them feel good. It replaces what they've lost. So when they say he was a deist, was he really a deist? Did he really believe it? But many socialist groups have discovered that when you strip away the church, when you destroy Christianity, when you destroy the church, people still want to believe something, and they are agitated. It doesn't work. Eventually you have to give them something, and then they make up a fake religion to give them. And that is exactly what he did. Now, Thaddeus, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we can see this today as well. In various ways. You can see it in the rise of so-called New Age religions, where people are just making stuff up, basically wholesale, and saying that it's true. You can see it in people's fanatical devotion to a political party, to a set of virtues that they don't have any basis to them, but they have the fanatical devotion to them. So it does seem to be very consistent with human nature that we need to have, some sort of spiritual religious connection. I would argue that is an indication that there is a God, because it doesn't make any sense apart from it. But the atheist typically, there are rare exceptions, but the atheist typically will live their life in such a way as if they believe in some sort of spiritual higher authority. They'll live with moral principles. They'll feel like there's a difference between what's right and wrong, while denying it with their lips.
Yeah.
So it is a very interesting thing, and Robespierre, he nailed it here. He said you can't replace religion with nothing. You have to replace it with something else. He had his own cult of Supreme Being, but we're going to see over and over again. That's what all of these early socialist communists were trying to do. They weren't trying to, replace religion with nothing. They did want to get rid of religion, but they didn't want to replace it with nothing. They wanted to replace it with something else.
Yeah, he says here, I found the quote. So, how does it help a man if you persuade him that blind force presides over his destiny and strikes at random, now at the virtuous, now at the criminal? Does it help him to believe that his soul is nothing but a thin vapor that is dissipated at the mouth of the tomb? Will the idea of annihilation inspire him with purer and higher sentiments than that of immortality? Will it give him more respect for himself and his fellow men, more devotion to his country, a braver face against tyranny, or deeper disdain for pleasure or for death? In other words, we got to inspire our people, and you've got to give them something to be inspired by. And he says, you have this vapid, empty, arid ideology that offers men nothing, gives them nothing to aspire to believe in, and we need these people to be on our side because they need to follow our ideals. We need to give them ideals to aspire to. So yeah, it's odd if they don't believe in okay. Yeah, so basically follow the Sharia and it will be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, just real quickly, I've seen more modern atheist philosophers say something similar, like we need a controlling lie to be a functional society. We can't replace Christianity with nothing. We have to replace it with a different lie. And they'll use that term because, with their lips, they believe that there is no God and it is all meaningless. But like, we need meaning, so let's lie to ourselves and pretend there is meaning. And we can replace it with whatever meaning we want
Yeah.
because it's just a lie anyway.
Agreed. Fantastic. Yeah. So now atheists and the drowning at Nantes. I'll just call it Nantes or whatever because, man, I'm not French. So the atheist revolutionaries passed a law that all non-conforming clergy, in other words, clergy that wouldn't renounce Christianity, be killed on sight because that's reasonable. That's what atheists do. Because atheism leads to reason, guys. You need to get this. And anyone who harbored such enemies was subject to the death penalty. So Jean-Baptiste Carrière enforced the law by loading priests and nuns like cattle onto boats, ferrying them down the Loire River. They were stripped naked and they were tied together in pairs, one priest per nun, in republican marriages designed to mock their vows of celibacy. They were then thrown overboard. Okay, Wesley Curry, I have no idea what your contribution is here, but you are starting to get seriously annoying. Right? So I think we've had this little discussion with you. And yeah, so have a nice day. Cheers, buddy. So they were stripped naked and tied together in pairs, one priest per nun, in republican marriages, designed to mock their vows of celibacy. They were then thrown overboard and killed. When this method proved far too inefficient for mass executions, Carrier sank the vessels with all the captives trapped on board, drowning them in what was dubbed the national bathtub. Now, these weren't the only killings, understand. They would often dig long ditches, line people up, and then shoot them, and they would fall into the ditches. I think that might sound familiar from actions carried out in the 20th century by well-known socialist atheist governments. But this got a start there. Certainly they got a head start. The French got a head start in them. Yeah. So between 5,000, now the numbers vary, but up to 9,000 people were murdered in the drownings at Nantes, including innocent families with women and children. This happened in the name of atheism, in the name of reason, to stamp out fanaticism. So, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
5,000 people is a lot. And this is one event.